Combat chaplains wear uniforms but carry no weapons, and their story is one of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering support for soldiers on the front lines. The new documentary, Fighting Spirit, A Combat Chaplain's Journey, reveals the remarkable role these chaplains play, offering strength across faiths and often risking their own lives. It is set to hit theaters tomorrow, but today we are thrilled to have executive producer Rich Hull and retired U.S. Army Chaplain Jeff Struecker featured in the film to chat with us today. And so, Rich, what inspired you to bring this story to life?
Sure. It's my, I think, 28th movie as a producer, but it's my first as a director. And I like to think that I waited a long time to choose a subject matter that was as powerful as this to make my directing debut with my co-director, Justin Roberts, who's a former Army combat chaplain and veteran. And so I knew nothing about this profession, and it's really far more than a profession. It's a calling. Nobody does this just for the paycheck. And I was aware of Jeff's story from the movie Black Hawk Down, where his story had been portrayed. I then reached out to my friend Chris Pratt and we both thought this is a story worth telling. And then it kind of took on a life of its own from there. And we partnered with the U.S. Army Chaplain Corps, who's just been an incredible partner to give us access that we needed to tell these types of stories. And, you know, when the universe gives you all of that momentum, you just take it, and we did.
Jeff, chaplains often serve in some of the most dangerous situations, but without a weapon. Can you speak to the emotional and spiritual strength that is required to be a combat chaplain?
Yeah, sure. I mean, those guys and gals are my heroes because they're willing to serve the country, because they love our freedom and then are willing to put the uniform on. But they are motivated by more than that. They go because of greater love than no one has than this, that they lay down their lives for their friends, and they go into some of the most dangerous parts of a battlefield without a weapon just because they are concerned for the spiritual welfare of the guys and gals in the U.S. military instead of focused on the enemy. And man, it takes incredible faith. It takes an incredible love to be able to do that kind of service in that kind of situation. And most of them do it without any recognition, and they're happy not to be recognized for it.
It really does take a special person. Can you tell us what was the most challenging or most rewarding part about telling this story on screen? Because these are real people we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I'll start here. For me, one of the most challenging parts of it is I wanted to capture really what it felt like. But how do you put into words how terrible and how triumphant some of the worst and the best moments in humanity on the battlefield or afterwards? And I think I personally struggle with a little bit just trying to find the right words for audiences.
I would say for my part, building on what Jeff said, there's so many heroic stories that happen with combat chaplains, and yet chaplains don't like to be part of the story. They like the spotlight to be on our soldiers. And so one of the most difficult things for me was getting the chaplains to tell their stories. And I think pulling that out of them was both a cathartic experience for them, but a really important one for us. And I think probably the biggest single example of that is about halfway through production, the remains of a former Army combat chaplain from Korea who died in a prisoner of war camp named Father Emil Capon were identified, brought back to the U.S. They had a giant funeral for him, which we didn't think would be giant, but it turned out to be. And we were able to send my partner Justin there and film the whole thing. And it really kind of became the heartbeat of the film. And I think that's when the film really found its voice. So telling those stories for me and pulling those out of the chaplains, that was probably the hardest part.
One final question. What impact do you hope that this film is going to have on all viewers?
Well, for my part, I think that it's, it's a journey into a world that we didn't know. I think so for general audiences that don't have a connection to the military or to a particular faith, I think that's really what it is. It's a journey of discovery. There's that word journey. It's in the title of the movie. And so I think that that's really important for audiences. And I want them to have a specific call to action to just check on your veteran friends. There's a lot that goes into war. And I think one person can really make a difference.
Rich and Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. You can watch Fighting Spirit, A Combat Chaplain's Journey in theaters starting tomorrow, November 8th.